just take a step back. I want to take a step back into, like you said, like your childhood growing up versus when you decide to go out on your own. So, how would you describe your relationship with the Lord? Would you say that as far as like the the upbringing of like your household, would you say that, like your parents, because a lot of times as young children, we come to the knowledge of Christ, but it's more of a what we see our parents do and just kind of like follow behind that. And being though you said you were a preacher's kid, like how did that make an impact on your childhood and your outlook on what being a Christian would be?
So I got saved when I was either 7 or 9 years old. I was really young, and I didn't understand what it meant to be saved. I literally, I remember the day like it was yesterday. I was sitting in the pew. The preacher was preaching. I don't know what about. I remember I was sitting on a different seat than where I normally sit, and I was sitting near the front. And then when they gave what's called an altar call, when they gave the altar call, I just felt in my spirit that I was supposed to go up there at this time.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what it even meant to go up there. I didn't know I didn't know anything. I heard the words, and I understood all what the preachers had been saying all those years. But like that day, I just was like, okay, I know I'm supposed to do this. And today is supposed to be the day. From then, I learned, um, everything that you learn in Sunday school and, the Bible stories. But
Mm-hmm.
I never understood relationship. So I had biblical foundation, right? But I didn't understand it in a sense that it was more like a Pharisee type situation where I had all the knowledge, but not the true understanding, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Right.
So later, a few years down the road, when my dad was called the pastor, um, I rededicated my life, and again, it was just that drawing in the time when that altar call was given. It was like, okay, I realized that I'm a sinner in this point, and I
Mm-hmm.
want to rededicate. So then years after that, after I went to my now church home, at the non-denominational church, I started to go to classes where I learned, okay, this is what we believe. And
Oh,
then
new membership class.
not necessarily new
Oh,
membership,
dear.
like
Mm-hmm.
Bible school. They're like an accredited Bible school.
Right.
But I was taking the classes, and they're like, okay, so this is kind of what we believe, and then this is the reason why we believe it. And then
Right.
I started learning about, okay, real relationship. One second.
Mm-hmm.
So we started learning about real relationship and what that actually means. And yeah, so it wasn't until after that when I moved that I really started to learn, okay, it's not just about getting saved. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
And I had all the biblical foundation. I knew the whole, like not the whole Bible, but I mean,
Right. We know Bible terms that's being repeated.
I knew what they meant because, my pastors, my dad, they explained what those things meant and why they were significant, but it didn't really get a true understanding until later. And maybe that had to do with my age. But I don't know. It may have been just, I wasn't ready. But that's kind of where I am.
Right. Because I think about when I got saved probably around like the time I was 12. I had no real knowledge of Christ in that time. It was more of a like I want to sing on this choir, and they told me I got to get saved and get baptized. However, during that time, there was a message that I did hear, and it was about hell. And he said there would be hot and gnashing of the teeth. And I said, I don't want to go there. I mean, the preacher was preaching his heart out about hell. And I said, hell is not for me. So I'm going to give my life over to Christ. And I got baptized, and I still didn't have a full understanding of that. But I was willing and able. And the first thing that I did, I knew that I was a sinner because I used to curse in 6th grade, like at the cafeteria, so I could be cool. I was like, I don't curse no more. I'm saved. Filled with the Holy Ghost, fire baptized. I don't curse. Okay. Or if I did desire to curse so I could be part of the in crowd, it was like, Lord, please turn my tongue into like a serpent, like little childlike stuff. But like, it's all about that maturity and coming to the knowledge of understanding of Christ. Because I feel like a lot of times with us growing up in the church, especially being a kid, and more relative to what Todd Delaney has said about the church culture, especially when we get started so young, a lot of those things kind of formulate into our mind, and then how when you go into adulthood and how you start to mature, how those certain things begin to break, and it's like you don't understand. And then it's like you go through like a crisis, like a midlife crisis, and you just getting started. Like you just left your parents, you left your parents' household, and now you're an adult, and now you're like, wait a minute. So this whole entire time I was looking down on this group of people, or I thought this way about a certain thing, and that doesn't make me like, I'm not damned to hell for that, or I can't believe I felt this way. Like, that's totally against what the actual Bible, that's totally against what Jesus' love is all about.
Right.
So it's very amazing. And I think what I was told was that a lot of times that when it comes down to deconstructing your faith, that a lot of times the minorities, as far as people of minority, they don't deconstruct their faith because it's something that we hold on tight to, because it's something that we as far as our upbringing, we're taught to, is God first, family, then yourself, and that's something. So we don't challenge it. So if the church says this, then it's this, and it's this all the way through, until the day that you die, and you don't challenge it. But I think now that we're in a time period now where we're learning to say, hold up, that don't even sound right. You can't put two and two together. So therefore, and we have more education, we have access to the internet, and we're talking to one another, and we're like, hey, this goes beyond what I was told. So that's what this is all about, of the deconstructing your faith. Can you like share anything about like, anything that you went through as far as, any eye-opening things that you have did as far as like your transition from, childhood to adulthood?
Well, I don't know, but I mean, to talk to your point about, going through that crisis and seeing. So a lot of our faith is based on a testimony, right? They say,
Right.
if you haven't been through anything, like, do you really have faith, right? So I think that, yes, like a lot of our trials and tribulations is what helps us to get to having a faith. It brings us to have faith in God. It's like, all right, this is happening. Do you have faith or not? Do you trust God?
Right.
And then that's
Right.
where we learn about relationship, because we have to understand, okay, I've been diagnosed with something. Now all of a sudden I have to trust God. So now what does his word say? It says that he is our friend, healer. He is there with us. He never leaves us or forsakes us. So then now we're digging and we're learning who he is, and who he is to us, and what he is to us. So that is where our faith is grown. So a lot of times as children, we're taught the basic things like Daniel and the lion's den. We're taught the, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. We're taught about Adam and Eve, and
Christian starter kit.
Yes. We get older, if we go back and read those stories, those accounts, because they're not stories, they're accounts, we see, okay, this guy had faith that God was going to be there with him despite the fact
Mhm.
adversity of being in the lion's den. Like, he had nothing else to do but trust God. So then
Right.
we adapt that, or either we adapt it or we walk away from it. So
Right.
that is like, that is a point where we learn to trust God, and like I said, learn to say, okay, I'm going to be a Christian because I'm going to follow Christ, in a sense that when he was in trouble, he prayed. When he
Mhm.
prayed for everything, so we have to say, okay, I need to be praying about everything, because things
Right.
are always going to go wrong. Things are always, you know, things are always going to happen to me or whatever. So a lot of times that's what happens, is that as adults we start to rely on those things that we learned when we were little to
Mhm.
back up our faith.
Right.